I think I'm saying that we struggle all our lives to answer it. That it's the struggle that is important. That's what helps us to define our place in the universe.
This is Beverly, Dr. Beverly, Dr. Beverly Crusher.
Look where we are. Here, all of us, in this moment. So let's do what we spent our entire lives learning to be great at.
And this is Crusher Convo.
And welcome to Crusher Convo, where we are crushing the conversation one episode at a time. I am here with one of our favorite helmsmen in all of Star Trek, and at one time kind of gave Wesley Crusher some bad advice. I have actor, director, and producer Robert Duncan McNeill. Welcome, Robbie. Thank you for joining me today.
Great to be here. Really great to be here. Awesome. That was fun to watch your intro movie.
Oh, thank you.
Beverly Crusher just crushing it all over the place, action-packed.
I know, cool. Right? I've always been, I loved making videos as a kid and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff really, brings me joy outside of my, day-to-day life. But yeah, it's, I just barely started watching Star Trek a few years ago in 2022. Did not grow up with it.
Gosh.
I know.
A newbie. Wow.
I am a huge newbie, but I took it all in, and it's so funny because I met Garrett at STLV, and that was kind of my pitch. I was like, "Yeah, I'm new. I'm doing this," and he's like, "Whoa, wait a second, like let me back up." He's like, "You barely just watched it." I was like, "Yeah, because my husband's a huge TNG fan. Took him 18 years for him to finally got it, and then I kind of stole it from him. Sorry, husband."
That's funny.
But, before we jump into Star Trek, let's kind of start back at the beginning. I saw you grew up in Atlanta. So how did that first catch the acting bug got in there?
Yeah, I mean, I've told this story, so I feel like I want to tell it differently, and I'm not sure how I'm going to tell it. So if you've heard me tell the story before, this is going to be different. So I grew up in Atlanta. Not really. I mean, I think of Atlanta as home because it's the place where I went to kind of junior high and high school. So those years, I heard recently that in our minds, our self-perception of who we are, over 80% of it is the person that we were till we were 20 years old or something, 18, 20 years old. That's the perception of our lives, is all of that. Even at 61 now, I think of myself as the defining part of me is that part that grew up to 18, 21 years old. Those years are so defining for all of us in a crazy way. So did I grow up in Atlanta? Kind of. I mean, it was middle school and high school. I moved around a lot. I had moved around so much that I had become extremely socially anxious. I think all the moving around had made me feel just insecure socially. I didn't have a lot of friends. We had been moving almost every year. It wasn't the military. My dad worked for GE, but in the corporate world, those kind of transfers can happen just like in the military. So that's kind of the experience I had was moving all the time, sometimes not even a year in one place. So I built up this kind of social anxiety. I was very introverted. I was very much a lone wolf. I loved to play in the woods and get muddy and fall in the creek. And I loved climbing trees and building, tree houses and stuff like that. Being an actor was not even on my radar. I didn't even know people could do that. It just didn't. I don't think I'd ever seen a play, although I take that back. Growing up, we didn't have much money. And I never stayed in a hotel or even a motel until I had left home, I think. Growing up, a family vacation was camping in our Coleman cabin-style tent and out of the trunk of the Pontiac Catalina vehicle. And it was camping. We were tent campers. And we would go off into the Outer Banks of North Carolina, where all my extended family lived around the Carolinas. And there was a summer play there called The Lost Colony. Very famous because I think Andy Griffith was in the play when he was a young man.
Wow.
A lot of Broadway icons. This play, The Lost Colony, was done as a historical drama outdoors in this amphitheater in the Outer Banks. It was about the very first colony that came to the continental U.S., a British colony, and it disappeared. They were lost. They spent one winter, and when the boats came back the next spring, couldn't find them. No trace of them. They've never found them. So there's this historical drama about what we know and what may have happened and blah, blah, blah. So I saw that play when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. That's literally the only play I ever saw in my life. Did not know people could be actors, but I do remember I really liked that play. Like, it was cool. I liked the costumes and the lights and the drumming and the dancing and the battle scenes. And I thought that was cool. It's the only play I ever saw, so it's my only reference. But anyway, so we move around a lot. I'm introverted. We get to Atlanta, and my little sister, who's like 3 or 4, is going to take ballet class for little 3-year-olds, right? Where they run around and point their toes.
Skipping around.
Yes, skip around to classical music, and the teacher has to dance in front of them. And so that's what my sister was going to do. And at the little kids dance studio, there was also it's an older studio, been there for decades. So it had some history in the community, and they had a children's theater that they were doing The Wizard of Oz. And my mom said, hey, the flyer says they need a bunch of kids for Munchkins for The Wizard of Oz. And, you could probably meet some kids. We just moved here to Atlanta, and you're just playing by yourself in the woods. What are you doing? You need to meet some kids. I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to play in the woods. Let me get muddy and just be by myself. And she was like, well, if you want to do it, just try it out. You don't have to do it. You could just audition. I'll sign you up. I was like, fine, I'll go in to see, but I don't think I want to do it. So the day comes around, they're having auditions. My mom goes, hey, today's the day. You got to go in and meet them and see if you want to do this play on Saturday or whatever. And I was like, nah, don't want to go. She goes, sorry, you signed up. You told me yes, you have to keep your word. You don't have to do it if you don't like it, but you've got to go today because you have an appointment to go meet them and audition. I didn't even know what an audition was. I was like, oh God, okay. So she made me go. So we get there, and they've got little sheets of paper with a couple of Munchkin lines on them. And I went in, my turn. I went in and read the couple of lines. And they said, do you have a song? I was like, no. I was so painfully shy. They said, do you know Happy Birthday? I said, yeah. And they said, why don't we sing that? So the piano player plays Happy Birthday. And I kind of looking down, probably saying Happy Birthday, whatever. And then
I'm getting flashbacks.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And then they cast me. I mean, I was horrible. I was painfully shy. But something about, I think, the pretense that there was an audition, because everybody got in the show, but something about, I had to go through the pretense of this audition. And then they say, you got it. You're in the play. Just like winning was such a nice feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. And I was like, oh, okay. They want me to do it, even though I was a disaster, I'm sure. So I ended up doing it. And long story short, I found a place that was inclusive and welcoming. The culture of that particular children's theater was incredibly warm. And I just suddenly found an experience of doing this children's theater that was exactly what I needed at exactly the time I needed it, when I was 12 years old or something, 13. a place that I felt like I mattered, a place where I felt like I belonged, that I mattered, that because of my painful shyness too, I've said this before, but I'll repeat this story. I did not grow up in a family that expressed feelings very well, or, like if we went to my grandparents for the holidays, they were so uptight. Everybody was so uptight that they didn't want to, nobody wanted to offend anybody else. So you'd end up talking about the weather because you can't, nobody's going to get mad about the weather. So, yeah, it might be raining next week. Yeah, that's what I hear. That was about the extent of our conversations, So the reason that the children's theater and being an actor connected for me was because I found, and I didn't realize this until decades later, looking back on it with some age and wisdom, I can see that I didn't know how to express myself. I didn't even know how to feel feelings and own the feelings I'm having, just feel them, let myself. But when there's a script and it says the character gets mad and they yell about feelings, and I have the lines right in front of me, and it let me practice feeling feelings. It let me practice saying, my heart is broken, or I love you, or things that I just was not raised. I was not used to. I was not used to. And there's an incredible value in that. It was so powerful for me that I wanted to do it for a career. I would not recommend that to most people. I don't think it's a smart career, but I do recommend the value of that kind of creative and performing experience and there's a lot of arts where, whether it's writing, literature, writing fiction, whether it's painting, whether it's music or dance, there's a lot of ways to learn to express yourself. For me, I needed to find words, and I needed to practice being angry where it's okay, where it's safe. Practice falling in love and having my heart broken and having a happy ending anyway. In the end, they all live happily ever after. That kind of practice for me was therapeutic, which reminds me, cut to many years later, I did a musical called Into the Woods. I did the first national tour of Into the Woods, the Broadway first tour back in 87 or whatever. And I played Jack. But Into the Woods is all about fairy tales. And they're sort of like these kind of archetypal characters, the naive innocent of Jack, or the delusional, narcissist in the prince, or the whatever, you kind of have these archetypes, the witch, the scary witch. Mm-hmm. I think that, God, that was such an amazing play to be a part of, because of it kind of brought me full circle back to, I think, why I got into acting in the first place, is these kind of Freudian therapeutic sort of examining the human experience and the human condition and relationships and feelings and all of that. So
arts is very meta, right? You were kind of describing me. I was also very anxious, shy, want to kind of be off to my own kind of kid. But I grew up in the 90s where technology started developing. And what I learned in my arts, I guess you could say, is I loved video editing. That was something that I saw and I was like, that's really cool. And I would do it with music and clip and this and, and make it entertaining. And that was kind of my moment. Now, I wasn't around other people. I was kind of in my zone, but it was therapeutic in my sense to kind of help me if I was struggling with, because I could feel things sometimes, I think I'm kind of on the spectrum a little bit. So, and for you, seeing Andy Griffith and being all like, that's kind of cool, you kind of opened that box, so, and of course you decided to go off and study at Juilliard. Are there any lessons from that experience that still stay with you today, whether it is acting or directing?
I mean, the thing about Juilliard and the time that I was there, John Houseman started the school, the program, and it was based off of I think, a very British and Canadian and European kind of way of training in certain techniques and certain ways of speaking and approaching classical theater. And anyway, John Houseman started the program. I think the first few years of the Juilliard drama department and the program were incredible, exciting, and some incredible actors, incredible training. I came sort of like 15 years later when in my opinion, the school was sort of stuck in this old way, but hadn't really modernized or transformed at all. It hadn't grown very much. And so there were a lot of things about the way the school had been started that I think were outdated culturally. You know, they tried to make everybody sort of fit in a box of what John Houseman, and then when I was there, Michael Langham was the head of the school, kind of fit into this Juilliard actor, which was a very kind of culturally specific kind of actor. It was not inclusive of other kinds of acting and cultures and influences. It was very Anglo-British, European, that. But yeah, Juilliard was a mixed experience for me. I felt like I wanted the training there because I had mostly done musical theater growing up. And I'd done a little bit of straight plays and one Shakespeare play in high school with a local professional company where I had the smallest role in the play, but I did Richard III there one summer. And I was dying to learn more about that stuff, the stuff that I hadn't done a lot of. I'd done a lot of musicals, but Juilliard was going to, I thought, open up a lot of great experiences for me. But I had to leave to work. And my point is, it was mixed because they wanted you in this box. And I think for a lot of actors, especially, you know, actors that don't fit that very narrow box, it was not a warm, friendly place. And that's why I got into acting in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
Like I love the family, the love fest of it all. And this was not a love fest there. It was a very paranoid environment. It was a very, you know,
one direction.
Get rid of your bad habits. That's a bad habit. That's a bad habit. Just be this. And yeah, it's funny because I romanticize some of that training a lot, but in reality, I think I learned a lot more outside of Juilliard than I did while I was there. Yeah.
Now, you had taken on a variety of different roles before landing The Next Generation as Nicholas Locarno.
Yeah.
Did this feel like just another job at the time, or did you sense that being part of Star Trek was a major moment for your career?
If I'm being honest, I didn't want to do it. My agent kind of pushed me to do it because my agent represented a lot of fancy theater people. Not that I was a fancy theater person, but I liked being at this agency called Susan Smith and Associates, or Smith Friedman, or there was a few different names. But Susan had Brian Dennehy, had a lot of British actors, big, fancy, serious actors, a lot of theater people. And my agent had a lot of theater people who had done Next Gen and had a good experience because they did hire a lot of theater actors. So my agent said, hey, there's this role. They want to see you for it. I think you'd be great. I think you'd have a great experience. And I was like, Star Trek, Next Generation. I was like, I haven't even watched it, but it doesn't sound like something I want to do. And he's like, no, I've got a lot of clients. I was about to go do this pilot, and it was a very prestigious pilot, that particular pilot season. It was by the guys who created Northern Exposure, which was the number one show on the air at the moment. And that this was their new show. And it was shooting in Jamaica. It was shooting in the Caribbean. It was all set in the Caribbean, and they had some good actors already cast. And yeah, so I was doing this pilot in a few weeks. And I said to my agent, like, I've got a pilot in a few weeks. I don't need to do a Star Trek show right now. And he's like, no, I think you should do it. I think you'll have a good time. And, it'll get your mind off this pilot in a few weeks, instead of just sitting around obsessing about that. You go do something. So he sort of pushed me into it. And I had I had very low expectations. I think I had seen a couple by the time I went to shoot, but I don't know that I was particularly impressed. I don't think I'd seen the best next gens. Let's put it that way. So I was like,
there was some hit and misses at that time.
Yeah. But I had such a good time. Going back to my story about why I got to be an actor in the first place. The family bond, Will Wheaton's energy and attitude was incredible. I think he was energized because there were a lot of young actors, and he had never had that on Next Gen. He'd always been around adults. And here was 5 or 6 other young actors, and he was very excited and positive and energized. And the other young actors were incredibly happy and excited to be there. And all of that enthusiasm around me just sort of wore off on me. And we hung out. We had great conversations. We laughed. Our senses of humor were all the same. That whole group, it was one of my favorite experiences maybe ever as an actor in a television show. We would keep our costumes on and walk together down to the commissary in our spacesuits or whatever, because we could have just gotten food and sat in our trailers and had some peace and quiet, but we were having so much fun hanging out, and we knew it was only going to be 7 days or whatever. It wasn't going to be that long. So we just soaked it all up and hung out. And yeah, Will and I stayed in touch when I was in Jamaica shooting the pilot a couple of weeks later. I remember texting him about hockey games, and we stayed in touch for a long time and still stay in touch. But yeah, it was a great experience. And I had no idea that would lead potentially to a long relationship with Star Trek. No idea whatsoever.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, now Voyager comes along, and I've heard that Tom Paris was initially conceived as a Nick Locarno type. So obviously you were a shoo-in for the role. But how did you approach making Tom his own distinct character rather just revisiting Nicholas? Was it challenging to separate the two?
Well, I think that oddly enough, they wanted a Nick Locarno type, but they didn't really write that. They actually wrote the opposite of that, because if you look back at First Duty and Nick Locarno, he was written very charming. And then privately, only with Wesley or some of the other crew, he might say, hey, you guys, we got to stay on the same page. He might get tough there. But around, Picard or anybody else, he was super charming and nice. Whereas Tom Paris initially was written the opposite of that. He was written like a big, fat jerk to most people. He was not very polite or nice or respectful to anybody. And it took, and I think that was, it made it easier for me to separate those characters for sure. I think they wanted more Nick Locarno, but they weren't writing that. They were writing like an odd mashup of like Rebel Without a Cause with a chip on his shoulder mixed with a little bit of Riker and, the cad, without the humor and the fun and the heroism. He wasn't, Riker at least was like a team player. And so there was a lot of things about Riker that you could kind of go, he's a hero. Yeah, he might be, falling in love with every alien of the week, but he's a good guy and he's a hero. Whereas Tom Paris initially was not a hero. He was kind of a jerk to people, and he was womanizing. I remember saying to them in the first season, I'm like, you guys, this guy's not likable. Like, what is it about him we're supposed to like? Like, write that. Because you keep writing these things for me that are just, I wouldn't like this guy. Like, who would like this guy? He was not a likable character that first season. It took him a while, I think, to find. And I wish that it was also that role when I got cast. I had kind of been through a dip in my career at that point, and I'd come out of a pretty thin year. I'd done an off-Broadway play and a couple of guest spots, but not a lot. And I'd had a second kid, and so my expenses are going up and my income had gone down. I was like, I need this job. So my attitude generally on Voyager when I came in was just like, I'm a team player. Whatever they write, I'll do it. Whatever they tell me, I'll do it. I'm not going to question. I'm not going to say. It took me till the end of the first year before I started going, hey, you guys, I don't like this guy.
Yeah.
It's now that we've seen 20 scripts or whatever we did that first season, I think we have to rethink this if we're moving forward, like grow him a little.
Yeah.
And I wish that I had not, I think because I wanted to be a team player so much and I needed the job and I had to keep this job, that I sort of like I added to the direction they were writing and stuff, which was probably not the best choice. I was doing it out of like, let me be a good employee. I'm going to lean into what you're writing, but it actually made it doubly worse. Whereas if I had kind of thrown it away or been a little, even though the words are kind of jerky words, if I had made them a little more charming as opposed to leaning into the jerkiness, like, you know, I took everything they wrote as like, well, that's what they want. That's what they're writing.
Yeah.
I guess I'll give them, go big or go home on that. I'll go big.
Exactly.
And it was like, your writing probably is not helping, and my acting is probably not helping either. Let's both kind of back down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that's interesting because I always heard stories, where you guys couldn't really improvise, right? Like whatever's on the page, you had to do. So that was probably also in the back of your mind a little bit of like, I just gotta do it and not do anything else. But of course, Lower Decks, here we are decades later, Lower Decks plays with the idea that they're essentially the same person, obviously. And I loved that. But the Nick we see there feels, is very different from the one from Next Gen. So how did you approach getting into the mindset of portraying Nick more as a villain?
I loved the idea. Yeah, Mike called me, I don't know, a year or more before we ever even recorded it. And he was like, I'm thinking about doing this thing in the season, but it would require you to commit now to doing it. If you're on board with it, we'll write this out. And he sort of pitched it out to me. At the time, before they wrote that season, he was going to have me, he said, I think I'd like to have you just as a voice, like all season long. And then we would only see you come out in like the last 2 or 3 episodes. And so we think that Tom Paris is the bad guy. And then when we finally reveal, but I guess, it shrunk down to 2 or 3 episodes, whatever it was, because he realized, I don't think we can sustain that joke. But that was the impetus, is like, if the audience hears you, they're going to think that it's Tom Paris is the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I love that idea. Anyway, so how did I prepare? I just Mike told me what his story was and what the fun of the hook and all of that would be. And so, I mean, kind of like I always have, I often have felt like, if I understand what the writers want, I'm going to go big or go home. I'm going to give them what they want.
Exactly.
I still do that as a director. I still do that. I've always felt like, it's my job to try to tell the story they want. And if Mike has this idea about Nick, whatever he wants there. Yeah, he wanted a big bad guy. He wanted the big bad for that season to be Nick Locarno at the end, the reveal of that, and becoming a planet, I think, at the end.
You did. Yes, Nick is now a planet.
Yes.
But it's so great because Lower Decks really is coming off of, the Lower Decks episode, which of course came off of the First Duty. So really the whole series is concepted from, Nick and Cito and, Wesley and all that, which I was super stoked about. And of course, seeing you at the end, I was like, and then of course we even got Will back as well. So it was just kind of like full circle. But to see Nick go from, that one episode, like you said, he was, yes, sir, very polite, very charming.
He was very charming. when I looked back at it, years later, I was like, after I had done Voyager, I think I looked at it well into the Voyager run, and I was like, oh, wow, my memory of Nick was that he was a bad guy, but he's not. I mean, he actually takes full responsibility in the end. He does the right thing. He may have made a mistake in the process, but he actually in the end says, this is all on me.
Yeah. And even Wesley had said that. He's like, he did exactly what he said he was going to do, was he was going to take care of the team. Yeah. Right. He was, he was the captain and he went down with the ship, essentially. So just to kind of see, that twist at the end of how he just, he lost everything, right, that he fought so hard for. And that, of course, took him down a very dark path. But you also began directing during your time on Voyagers. How has stepping behind the camera changed the way you approach bringing television to life compared to acting?
I did find that as I was an actor in television, I did find that the contribution that actors can make, I think, is often not overvalued, but over perceived. I think the story is told by so many different departments and craftspeople, and starts with the writing. The story is told through the way the sets are done, the way the scenes are lit, the way the camera shoots things, the way that
the editing.
Scenes are blocked, the editing, the music, the visual effects, the sound effects. Editing is huge, obviously. The acting, yes, of course. The, stories can be completely rewritten with ADR or, additional dialogue recording. You can go in and add lines off camera or on someone's back that will totally change the story. I've fixed stories that way before. When stories, you cut it together, you're like, it doesn't really make sense. Let's loop a line in there where somebody says it on their back, what the piece is that we didn't write in the episode or whatever. So there's a lot of parts. It's a team sport. I say that often when I'm working on television. I remind myself and I remind the people around me, like, this is a team sport. We have to be a team. This is only made and succeeds if the team works well together. I feel like Nick Locarno does a little bit. Like, it's about the team. And when people get in television, when people overplay their value, whatever that position is that they have, whether they're an actor or a writer or a producer or director of photography, I've seen them all lose their shit sometimes. And you're like, meh. Once the drama's over, you realize, that's not the way to succeed in television. It's a team sport. So my point would be that as an actor, I realize the limitations of acting because they could change my performance. They could change so many things about, what I thought the scene might be, or whether it was the way the director changed my expectation of blocking, the way that the shots changed the way the story was told. So I was really interested in all the gadgets and the tech side of things, like how the cameras worked, what lenses did, what lights did. And I realized that if I was a director or a producer or behind the scenes that way, that I could actually get my hands in all those parts and actually affect the storytelling much more than just being an actor. And also I had 3 kids, and I knew that I'd been through a couple ups and downs of acting, and I was like, I don't want to keep riding that roller coaster. I think I can have a more stable life as a director and as a producer, and which I think that was the right gamble for me. It was the right gamble. Yeah.
No, for sure. And you've built an incredible directing resume: Dawson's Creek, The OC, Supernatural, Desperate Housewives, the Orville, so many more. Is there a particular moment or project that stands out as a highlight for you as a director, something you're essentially proud of?
Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, I feel like as an actor, I got to do everything more than I ever dreamed when I was growing up. As we've discussed, I had no awareness of acting was a career choice until I started doing it in high school. And I'm like, oh, people can do this. But then I thought New York and being a theater actor was really, that's what I imagined. I never had been to California. I'd never been, out west. And certainly making movies and TV shows was even more impossible than being a theater actor. At least the theater actor, I could kind of see, oh, I get how that might happen. I might do dinner theater the rest of my life or whatever, But I could see what I could do summer stock. I could maybe be a teacher, a high school drama teacher, and then do summer stock. I would, I kind of had those things in my head. Being on camera was so far from my awareness. Did not occur to me. So my point is, I got to do more than I ever imagined. I got to be on camera, not just on TV shows, but on in movies and guest spots. I got to do all kinds of, I got to be a cowboy. I got to be a spaceman. I got to be all kinds of things I got to be an actor on Broadway. I got to do off Broadway. I got to do dinner theater a couple of times. I got to do tours. I got to work with Stephen Sondheim, twice in my career.
Wow.
So I did more than I could ever imagine. And I feel the same as an actor. I feel the same way as a director. I never imagined that when I told Rick Berman, hey, I've been thinking about directing. I'd love to try this. I never imagined I would have the kind of variety and opportunities that I've had as a director. I've gotten to do, science fiction. I've gotten to do comedies, half-hour comedies, 1-hour comedies, action shows. I've done shows that have won, the stunt Emmys, the visual effects Emmys, the makeup Emmys, the acting Emmys. I've done more kinds of things than I ever could have imagined as a 12-year-old singing Happy Birthday at Fleetwood Dance Studio. I never could have imagined getting to do the kinds of things I've been able to do. So I feel very lucky. I feel like my acting career and my directing career have one common theme, and that is there is there's no one kind of thing that I've done. I've been so lucky to be able to do so many different kinds of things. I love comedy. I love doing Chuck, that show that I produced and directed a bunch of. Chuck was one of my favorite jobs ever. It was the hardest job I've ever done. Chuck was a blast. I really love working on Smash the first season. I got to just direct on that show, but that was a dream come true because it allowed me to direct a show about a Broadway musical. It was like all my things coming together. It was amazing.
All in one mesh.
Yeah, it was amazing.
A full circle moment there.
That was amazing. And then, of course, Resident Alien. I have to say that. Resident Alien, my most recent producing job that I got to produce, direct, write on the show. It was just a phenomenal, really special show.
I mean, it's a perfect segue because I was going to say you got involved with Resident Alien, serving as the executive producer, directing, and even writing an episode. What was it about the project that resonated with you the most? And is there anything you wish that you had the chance to explore more that you didn't get to?
I mean, the way the Resident Alien happened was I was living in Atlanta. I had moved back home. I got divorced 10, 12 years ago. 2015, I got divorced, and my dad got sick at the same time. He got cancer pretty bad. So I was like, you know what? My kids are grown, barely, but they're grown. They're out. My dad's sick. I think I'm going to move to Atlanta and be with him and hang out, help him out. So I'm living in Atlanta, and I've been working there. I produced a show called The Gifted there, an X-Men show. And that was over. That was canceled. And I had read about this show, this graphic novel comic book series called Resident Alien that they made a pilot of, and that Alan Tudyk was starring in, and it had gotten picked up to series. I didn't know anybody involved, but I know Alan's work. and I'm a big fan. He's super talented.
Mm-hmm.
The short premise I read about an alien living in a small mountain town, pretending to be a doctor, trying to kill all the humans, I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
And kind of like Smash was like my musical theater world and my TV directing came together. This was a kind of premise that reminded me of like, oh, the comedy, the science fiction, the heartfelt stories like Chuck that we had. There's something about it that just felt like a good fit for me tonally, like telling stories about an alien who's trapped here and trying to kill all the humans and doing it in a funny way. It just felt like a show I should be a part of. I told my agent, I want to do that show. And they had another producer at the time, another directing producer that they were negotiating a contract with, a deal with. And I said, well, if that doesn't happen, or if there's any trouble there, I want to meet, I want to get in, I want to throw my hat in the ring. So like a month goes by and I call him, I said, from Atlanta. And I was like, whatever happened with that Resident Alien thing? Did the deal go through? And I said, let me check. And he calls me back and goes, no, didn't go through. In fact, they were having some, disagreements about the contract or whatever. It may not happen. And I was like, well, I'm coming to LA next week. I want to meet with those. I want to go for this job. I want to meet him.
Yeah.
And anyway. So I kind of went after the show, having not seen it, but I had gotten a copy of the script, the pilot script, and it was exactly what I expected from just reading about the origins of it. It was funny. Mm-hmm. It was epic. It was cinematic. It was heartfelt. It was great.
It ticked all the boxes that
totally
you love about. Yeah, that you love about, acting and creating television and stuff like that. Now, you can add podcaster to your resume. You and, of course, your Voyager castmate, Garrett Wang, launched the Delta Flyer to revisit the Voyager series, and now you're exploring Deep Space Nine along, Terry Farrell and Armin Shimmerin. What have you learned from the podcasting experience as you've gone back to your shows and looked back?
I mean, here's one thing I learned that I didn't expect when we first started talking about it. On a podcast, you can talk for a long time.
Yeah.
I never expected, like when we make a TV show, it takes us a long time to make it, but we are cutting it to 43 minutes or whatever the number is. Like,
yeah.
In the end, you're going to have 43 minutes of a story. That's all you got. This podcast thing, the ability just to kind of wander down roads and just keep talking and keep exploring. I mean, we will sometimes, I think when we had Michael Dorn on our podcast, we had Michael and Terry and Armin, me and Garrett, all of us talking about the introduction of Worf onto the series. And yes, it was a two-parter, but still, we ended up talking, I think the podcast recording was like 6 hours or something for that.
Wow.
I mean, Michael was, by the time we got to the, he was like, I'm done. I can't talk about this anymore. He was
tapping out. Yeah.
He was tapping out. But I was like fascinated. And that's one thing that I'm fascinated with in the podcast world is you can kind of, in some ways, it's better than the episodes. Like the episodes have to fit into 43 minutes, but we can talk about the episode for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And we do. We talk on the regular podcast, the free podcast. That's an hour or two of talk about the show. And then we go on and we talk, for our Patreon subscribers, all the bonus content that's even deeper dives about the episode and behind the scenes and stuff like that. So we ended up talking, 3 hours about a 43-minute episode. I don't know how we do it, but we do.
Well, that's what I love so much too, because like I said, I just started Star Trek and you could watch the episode and, have your opinions. But when you have a conversation with someone else and kind of hear their thoughts on the episode and your thoughts, and it kind of elevates the episode a little bit. So now I can go back and watch the episode and see it totally different
than I did originally, or even see things that I didn't notice before or even learn from it. I always tell this to people that when I started Star Trek, it kind of shifted me into this journey of like self-discovery and just kind of understanding about who I should be as a person, but kind and compassionate and all that stuff. And literally a year later, I had suffered a horrible trauma. And it was such a trauma that I was out of work for a couple months and I had to get the help I needed. But I always think back, how would I have been able to process that trauma if I didn't have Star Trek in my life? Yeah. So I kind of go back and learn new things, or even when I've talked to Gates or I've talked to anybody else or even just other fans, I'm learning all the time. And that's also what I love about like your podcast or even the Seventh Rule, and hearing your guys's, experience at the time and now seeing it in a different lens as, like you said, older and wiser and kind of understanding the creative, differences at the time,
I think that's the other thing that when you ask like, what have I learned or what surprised me about doing the podcast? There's two things. One is, I think I'm really surprised and impressed with the technical execution of in so many episodes that we've watched, of whether it's Voyager or DS9. At the time, the amount of time, the amount of money, the limitations of money. I think we made those episodes for like $2 million, maybe less on DS9. Now a tight budget on a TV show is $5 million.
Yeah.
And we were, on a regular TV show with just human actors in a human place at $5 million just to do that. So yeah, there was not much money, and yet they were able to execute. So yeah, people often talk about like the Star Trek film school and, Roxanne and me and Frakes and LeVar and whoever went to the Star Trek training program. There wasn't really a training program, but by doing this podcast in a weird way, I'm kind of seeing what I remember the training program was, which is just an incredible amount of artists and technicians and craftspeople that know a lot, that share with you how they do it. I still use the lessons I learned about visual effects, fundamental visual effects. Even though we've got much more sophisticated CGI and computer, abilities to do things now that we couldn't even imagine 25 years ago, 30 years ago on Voyager. But I still use the same logic, the same like, okay, maybe there's different tools, but the steps need to be the same. Like, and maybe we can find a cheaper way to do it. Maybe we don't have to spend all that money on the CGI. Maybe there's a in-camera way. Maybe there's a poor man's way. And we did all that on Star Trek. So I'm just amazed at the Star Trek training program and how I see it in action week after week on the podcast. And the other thing, much more important, I want to point out, is what you're talking about, which is stabilizing anchor that Star Trek is for so many people. When on our journeys are going to find ourselves lost at some time, feeling alone, feeling lost, feeling confused, processing things. Star Trek, I have come to believe more than ever, is a great place for comfort and stability and to find, just to find some answers. And I think I've done that on the podcast, our podcast, over the last 5 or 6 years. I've had some ups and downs in my own life, and having this podcast that's going to make me watch an episode every week, and I'm like, boy, I needed to see that this week. Like, there's this thing going on in my life that's really distracting me, or it's making me frustrated, or I'm just not able to figure it out. And then I watch an episode for our podcast. I'm like, oh, there's the answer.
Yeah.
There it is. Or there's a story about someone else feeling frustrated about their thing the same way I'm feeling. Like, even that just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very aware, more aware than ever of the power of the kind of life lessons that and the comfort that Star Trek can be for people.
Oh, absolutely. And now we're heading into the crushing questions. Of course, it's
Okay.
5 quick questions here for you.
All right.
First one is, what's a small thing that instantly makes your day better?
Well, one small thing is every time I walk out of my bedroom in the morning and I walk into our living room, we have this incredible view of the Wasatch Mountains and the snowy peaks of the mountains here. And I find that just the mountains for me it just makes my day better. Having a beautiful thing to look at like that. And some people love the ocean. Some people love other things. I like the mountains. Something about the mountains just feel like an adventure to me. I see the mountains and I'm like, oh, I want to climb that. I want to go up that road. I want to go explore.
Yeah. If your life had a theme song, what would it be?
I was just thinking about like REM songs because REM is my favorite band. So the song Losing My Religion, maybe that would be my theme song.
Beautiful. I love it.
And by the way, losing my religion is a Southern expression. It's not about religion at all. It means you get really mad.
It's
that means
so
somebody
true.
is really pissed off. They're losing their religion. That means they are. So, yeah. Anyway.
Now, what's a childhood hobby you wish you kept up with?
Skateboarding. I used to skateboard everywhere. And I wish I'd kept up with skateboarding. I had a great skateboard. Like people that knew me when I was, 13, 14, 15, those ages, 12, whatever. They'd be like, where's your skateboard? Like I always had a skateboard with me.
Nice.
Everywhere.
Now, what's your go-to comfort food?
What is my go-to comfort food? I like pretzels. So that's boring, isn't
soft
it?
or crunchy?
Like just hard pretzels, like
like the bag of pretzels that you
like
get.
a bag of pretzels, like the big thick ones though. I mean it's not warm and like a warm comfort food, I would say French fries.
Nice.
But like just a snack, like a comfort food, if I'm like, as the day is going by, I go for pretzels a lot.
Nice. Are you a fry sauce person?
I like fry sauce. Yeah, I like ketchup though. I like ketchup with my fries.
Okay. I didn't even know what
if
fry
it's a
sauce
waffle.
was till I moved here.
Yeah. If it's a waffle fry, then you've got to have fry sauce. Yeah.
Then that is very true. That is so true. And last, what is your go-to vinyl on a rainy day?
Oh.
Now, if anyone has not seen Robbie's collection, hit his Instagram page. Okay, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I do have a lot of records now.
It's a beautiful site.
I upgraded my stereo, my vintage stereo stuff this year. A go-to vinyl on a rainy day. I mean, I have a weird eclectic mix of tastes. Like today I was listening to Ornette Coleman. I've got some great jazz vinyl. Miles Davis, anything Miles is amazing. Yeah, I think, but REM would probably be, and their very first album, Murmur, I think would probably be one of my go-tos. Yeah.
Any for your thoughts?
Hey, this is Ed Pogue. I'm calling in from the Boosting the Signal podcast with a question for Robert Duncan McNeill. Now, I got a question for you, and I probably could ask something about Star Trek, but I'm going to go a little deeper cut here, and I'm going to talk about Masters of the Universe, because honestly, that was the first time I had ever seen you in anything. And with the new excitement about the new Masters of the Universe movie coming out, I started thinking about the original film and was wondering, did they ever reach out to you or any of the other stars for a possible cameo in this new film? If not, I believe that is a missed opportunity. And I was just curious if it happened. Love all your work. Love the podcast. Jesse, you're doing a great job. Thanks for your time.
Thanks,
Ed.
Thanks, Ed. They didn't reach out to me. I mean, I know that a lot of people over the years I've read, from different filmmakers and people that they grew up watching Masters of the Universe as a kid. It was their favorite kind of B movie, the kids movie that they loved. I agree with Ed. I think it's a missed opportunity because there was a cheese factor to some of that original, movie that would have been fun, especially for like the human characters, I don't know, like I saw James Tolkien recently at a convention at Dragon Con in Atlanta. And Jimmy Tolkien was in Top Gun, a lot of people know him from Top Gun playing the Colonel or whatever he was. But yeah, Jimmy was still at a table doing good. He's in his 90s. And I'm like, oh, that would have been fun to have James Tolkien in the movie. Or me and Courtney, doing something like a quick flyby. I think it would have been fun for the fans. I don't know. Yeah, me and Courtney, I feel like that would have been me, Courtney, and James Tolkien. The three of us would have been fun to work in somehow.
Yeah.
'Cause that's sort of the human side. Then you're not stepping on any of the superhero characters that they've recast, obviously.
Right, of course. Yeah. Now, did you know that you share Masters of the Universe with another fellow Star Trek actor?
Anthony DeLonges?
Gates actually does the voice of Queen Marlena in the animated series.
Really?
Yeah. So now you guys have a connection there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, Anthony DeLonges he played Blade, and he was on one of the Kazon. I forget the Kazon's name on Voyager. He did a few episodes of Voyager.
That's cool.
So he was on in the movie Masters. And of course, Mike Westmore did the makeup for Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
And so I knew a lot of those makeup people. Yeah.
That's cool. Now, Chuck here says, what was it like working with Patrick Stewart, Gates McFadden, and Will Wheaton, and the other incredible actors in the first duty? Now, you did talk a little bit about, it felt like friends and hanging out and fun and stuff like that. Was there anything else that you took from that experience at all?
I remember Patrick being he was very friendly, but you could tell, I think this was the 5th season of the show or something that I was on. You could tell, I'd done enough TV shows to know, like, oh yeah, by the time people have been on a while, they're coming in and they just want to get their work done and go home. It's not the same for guest stars because this is your only chance to be on the show.
Your one shot.
Your one shot. So, yeah, but Patrick was very, very friendly and nice and warm. I don't remember Gates as much on that episode. I mean, I know she had scenes with Will, and she didn't like my character, so maybe she was being a little methody or something. I don't know.
You guys had a little pass by.
Yeah, exactly.
For a moment,
I think she was like, I don't like your trouble. Will was great. Yeah, everybody was very friendly. And Paul Lynch was the director of the first duty. He was the director of a Twilight Zone episode that I got my SAG card on when I was at Juilliard one summer. So,
that's cool.
Yeah, so I knew Paul, and that was crazy that it was the same director.
Mm-hmm.
And
that must have been nice, though, a familiar face, as you're doing it.
And a couple of the crew people had done Masters of the Universe, the movie. So I had known them from the movie, and they'd come over. Yeah, that was kind of crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah. Let's do one more question. So Katie says, could you walk us through your process of bringing a script to the screen? And also her favorite episode you directed is Someone to Watch Over Me. Your My Fair Lady adaptation was beautifully done. Do you want to know?
Yeah. Someone to Watch Over Me is one of my favorite episodes of Voyager 2. It was my 3rd episode. My first one, I panicked a lot and I felt like I was on top of it. Like, it was a hard episode, kind of a tricky one for, very moody, very kind of about faith and spirituality and all that. But I was happy with that one. My second one was the Borg Collective. That was a weird one. I didn't like that one. And so the third one, when I got Someone to Watch Over Me, I'm like, you know what? I am going to have fun. Like the first one, I was terrified. The second one, I tried to take it, I don't know. I'm usually a pretty good like soldier. I'll do what you tell me to do, and I did that on the second one and was not happy with that episode. And so this time I was like, I'm going to put my 2 cents in this. I know a lot of actors that'll be perfect for this. I knew Ian Abercrombie, who played the head kind of religious guy that brought the other guy on who ended up getting drunk. I wanted to lean into the comedy. All the dates that 7 of 9 went on, Brian McNamara and David Burke were friends of mine. I'd worked with them before. I knew they were good actors. I asked for them specifically to audition, and they got the roles. So yeah, I was just really happy. Casting is a big part of how to bring things to the screen, because you want to cast well. You want to make sure you've got the right actors. So that's a very important part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the process of bringing a script to screen, it depends on the script. It depends on the episode and what, if there's a lot of technical stuff. Like I remember I was about to talk about something I did recently, but it hasn't aired yet, so I don't want to talk about that. But
no spoilers.
I won't talk about that. But like there's some things that, I get them early enough that I just go crazy with, what if this, what if that, and get inspired. And like I did Dawson's Creek. My very first episode of Dawson's Creek was a very important episode of Dawson's Creek because it was where Dawson's father had just died in the previous episode in a car accident. And he was basically in denial about his feelings the whole episode until the very end, where he gets triggered going to the market to get a jug of milk. And he gets triggered by something the man says behind the counter, and goes out to his car and just finally lets all of his grief and his feelings out. Tough episode. James Vanderbeek had been asked to cry on Dawson's at that point a couple of times, and they had not been happy with it. So I knew that they needed, this story was all about a really authentic sort of release of grief. So my process in that was all about getting to know James. I'd never done the show. That was my first episode there. Getting to know him. I started talking to him about grief and about, one thing I remember, I looked up grieving in the 7 stages of grief, bargaining, denial, all those things.
Yeah.
So I started talking to James about that. I was like, I think it'd be interesting to kind of take this episode and break it down into those stages of grief. And where are you in each scene? Are you bargaining? Are you in denial? Are you, things like that. Things that inspire me, that make me feel curious and interested about the story.
Yeah.
Every episode is a little bit different, but one of the things that you spend a lot of time on is time management. Can we do this scene, and do we have a schedule that works? Are we going to be able to make our days in, 10 hours or 12 hours or whatever's budgeted?
Yeah.
And then thinking through all of those scenes. And as the director, when I'm the director, saying, okay, yes, I can do that in this amount of time, or no, I can't, we need to move something off this day. It's too big a day. And when I'm a producer, I want the directors, I want to say to the directors, I don't think you can do this. Like, I think this is too much work.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Or if they say, I don't think I can do it, I need some relief. Well, we can't give you relief. You're going to have to figure out a way to do this. It's like, maybe let's go through it. Could this be a oneer? Could we simplify this? Could we cut this little, they walk out into the hallway and just play it all in one room. Would that help you? Anyway, yeah, there's a million things you address as you're prepping a show.
Yeah. And like you said, just depends on the episode. I'm sure bottle episodes are different versus, different sets and lighting and things like that, or action versus comedy. And so, you just kind of have to prepare yourself prior to that, before you get into the recording time and shooting.
and hopefully it works out. But Robbie, this is such amazing conversation. I feel so honored to talk with you and pick your brain a little bit of everything that you've done. It's been so exciting. Just let the listeners know where they could find you. I know you're on Instagram. If you have any other project, I mean, you said you did have a project. Hasn't come out yet, so we'll keep that under wraps. But
I did. I directed the last 2 episodes of Stuart Fails to Save the Universe, which is the Big Bang spinoff on HBO.
Okay.
So it's a fun show. Jonathan Frakes directed a couple in the middle of the season. I did the last 2. It was really fun. A lot of the Big Bang cast came back. Multiverse premise, and it was fun. So yeah, that's coming out, I think, in the summer or fall. I'm not sure if they've got air dates, but that's HBO. And then the podcast, the Delta Flyers podcast. Check that out. It's free on any podcasting platform, or you can go to Patreon and get all kinds of cool bonus stuff. The community of our Patreon patrons and the Delta Flyers listeners has been another gift that I did not see coming. It's a great group of people. The conversations and the connection and the whether it's meeting up at conventions, whether it's the Zooms we have for different levels, whether it's just the Discord groups that they're all a part of, and creating great conversations and great support for each other, getting to know each other. We've had a couple of our Delta Flyers patrons with the podcast get married. We've had people have babies. We've seen people go from, single to married to babies to, I can't believe, almost like the series.
Like you're watching them grow up, right?
Yeah, we're watching, there are little kids. They're getting so big.
They're getting so big.
Up.
That's so cool, though. Yeah, that's fun. Amazing. But yeah, I've heard Delta Flyers, huge fan, obviously. I love your guys' conversations and your insights. So definitely check that out. But again, thank you, Robbie, and thank you to everyone who have been listening. Really appreciate it. As always, live long and prosper.
Pressure out.